Hello, Jen here, and welcome to week 2 of the Christmas card lift series that Daisy and I are doing. The card that we picked for this week comes from Christina Warner, and she was actually our original inspiration for starting this series 2 years ago, I think. And so I watch her every year, her holiday card series, and I know Daisy does too. And when I saw her do this one, I thought, oh, this is perfect. This is something that everybody can do, and it makes such a beautiful, stunning card. So I'm really excited to show you how they turn out. Now, a few things that I'm doing differently from her card. One, I don't have black watercolor paper, so this is just normal color block black cardstock from Walmart. One side is smooth and one side is textured, so I'm going to play around with both of the sides to see which one I like better. I also don't have a metallic watercolor set. I do have this set here. This is Artist Loft. I don't even know if they still sell this set, but it was always alongside that other really cheap Michaels Artist Loft watercolor paint palette that you could get. There is not a lot of paint in this. They're pretty cheap. They're very shimmery and very kind of pretty. There's lots of different colors, but as you can see, they're very, very transparent. They don't have that beautiful coverage the way that some of the higher quality metallic paints have. I just tested it out there because I wanted to see how long it was going to dry and how it was going to kind of soak into the black paper. Again, because it's not watercolor paper. So I'm going to leave it there, and I do make one card with this paint set, and it turns out very, very pretty. But I wanted to give you guys some other examples of things you could do. So if you don't have any metallic watercolors and you don't have this particular set here, you can pull out your Distress Oxides and look at how gorgeous these work on the black cardstock. All I'm doing is kind of taking that stamp pad and I'm tipping it up so only that top edge of the ink pad actually touches the paper, and it just looks so gorgeous. That was on the textured side of the cardstock, and I absolutely adore it. I did have to put it to the side though to let it dry because, again, this paper doesn't want to absorb any moisture, so it sits on the surface and it takes a long time to dry. So while that's drying, I'm going to use this paint and see if I can get it to work as well. The key to any kind of shimmer or metallic paint set is that you need to get the pans wet and let them really soak up the water and activate properly. They get a little bit thicker once that happens. And they seem to work a bit better. Even now you can see there's a lot of water kind of pooling. There's too much water on the paper. But I figured because these are fairly transparent, I was going to have to do a few layers anyways. So I went ahead to get the base layer put down. So I just am going to use a napkin quickly, and I kind of soaked up some of the little puddles that were pooling, and my paper was warping a little bit. That's definitely something that if you are using watercolor paper, it won't happen quite as bad, but I should have taped this down. I wasn't even thinking in the beginning, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I just have a glass mat that I use, and I taped it down. It's not taped down perfectly, but it's taped down a little bit better to kind of help with some of the warping. And actually, by the time this is completely dry, it goes right back to flat. So I was pretty impressed with how this cardstock, for being just, I think I pay maybe $6.87 or something like that for a stack of 50 of them. So for being fairly cheap cardstock, it actually took the water really well. And I'll just use my heat tool to help quicken that drying process a little bit. So I was just showing you Christina's card again and how concentrated her colors are. So after this was completely dry, I went back in, and now that I'm picking up the paints and they've had some time to sit, you can see that they're much thicker. they're going on in a much nicer, thick coat. So definitely with this type of paint, you're going to end up doing it in layers depending on the look that you're going for and how much you want it to sit on top of the black instead of showing. Even with this second layer, and I guess in a way this is kind of a third layer because I did play with it a little bit, you can still see some of that black card coming through, which I really like. I wanted to make sure that this still felt like watercolors. But if you want something really opaque, you might have to do a bunch of extra layers to get the right kind of saturation of color that you want. Oh, and here I was just showing you, if you didn't have paints and you didn't have the distress inks, other things that you could use to kind of get this same look would be maybe some gel pens. I had some metallic ones there. Those are actually my kids' packs that we got when we were in the States. So you could use something like that. If you had metallic gelatos, that would definitely work really well, even if it was something that you sort of built up over time, because you can get them at Michael's just in like the bulk bin. So, you know, you could use a 40% off coupon and get them for $1.50 or whatever it is and just build up a stash of metallic colors that way. There's lots of different options you could use. Basically, oh, even your mists. If you go back and look at some of my videos, especially Halloween ones, I've used quite a few of my shimmer sprays and Heidi Swapp Color Shine sprays that sit really nicely on top of the black cardstock and look really cool. So you could use that too. Lots and lots of different options. So while the other two cards are drying, I decided to go back and use the distress inks and try the smooth side of the cardstock. And I love this one. I think I love this one the best. I stuck a little bit closer to an actual rainbow gradient. I kind of did with the other two. I think my metallic watercolors one, I mixed up the blue and the purple, I think. This one I kind of stuck to that rainbow a little bit better. And I think it turned out so good. That one definitely shows the color the best. All right, so everything is dry. Oh, and also I punched out a whole bunch of snowflakes. So I have 2 snowflake punches and I just punched out a whole bunch of them. My card front is a little bit smaller than Christina's, so I just wanted these little tiny snowflakes. If you want to have some really nice big ones, you could always use snowflake dies or pull out your silhouette and cut a whole bunch of different snowflakes that way. It's definitely something that at Christmas, if you wanted to spend a couple hours just cutting out a ton of snowflakes, you know you're going to get them used up. So whichever way you want to do that, even if you had a snowflake stamp, you could stamp on top of this. That would look really cool too, but I just used my punch and got a whole bunch there. So now I'm just arranging my snowflakes. I'm flipping them back and forth because that white cardstock I used is the same brand as the black cardstock, so one side is textured and the other side is smooth, and so I kind of flip them around so some of the snowflakes are textured and some are smooth. And I did that basic kind of diagonal shape that Christina also used. And now I am creating my sentiment. So I went back to that Hero Art sentiment stamp set. I know I used that for the last 2 years. I love it. It just has a ton of different sentiments on it, different sizes, different fonts, all that kind of stuff. And so it works out really good. It's kind of one of those stamp sets that you just will never get tired of using. So I picked the Warmest Wishes because I thought that worked perfect with the snowflakes. And I went ahead and heat embossed that in gold because the card base that I'm using is gold. And that's a little bit different from what Christina did. I found these card bases when I was going through some of my stuff to get ready for the card series, and I just had 3 of these gold ones left, and I thought that that really pulls out the feel of the metallic paint. And so I thought it would be fun to go ahead and use those for the bases and let a little border of the gold show. So I used gold embossing powder to kind of tie that all together. And so I'm just going to figure out where I want it to go. I didn't want to cover up all of that beautiful metallic paint, or I guess in this case it's kind of shimmery. It looks a little bit metallic, but I think it's considered more shimmery than metallic, if that makes sense. And of course I like to do something on the inside too. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp this, which is kind of like a little complimentary sentiment that goes along with the warmest wishes. And I'll put a little snowflake in there, and the gold leaves a nice background color to write your sentiment on, so I don't need to paste in a piece of white paper or anything like that. So I put the snowflakes down on all of my cards and the little warmest wishes, and now my finishing touch is some sequins. So I have just these clear sequins. They came from Dollar Tree and they look stunning. They take these cards from gorgeous to absolutely stunning. I am so happy with these cards. They're really, really beautiful. So I hope you guys try them out. That is it for my video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. The link for Daisie's card is down below, as well as Christina's. Please go and check hers out because she was the inspiration for us this week. If you have any questions, you can leave them for me down below. I'd love to hear what you are doing with your Christmas cards this year, if it's not too early for you to be planning them already. And until next time, happy scrapping. Bye!